מסתכל גם על ירדים מסביב עושים לי איי איי בלילה וואי וואי וסחטן על תל אביב.
Good morning and welcome. So I'm going to pass it over to Colin to welcome us and get this started.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our second virtual UK Israel Business Breakfast of 2001. Now, I'm not trusting to fate to say that we can all see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the lockdown restrictions, and perhaps by July we can return to real live breakfast meetings, or maybe I'm being too optimistic. At least I've had my first jab, so we're on the way. However, as you're all aware, lockdown and the crisis has not deterred us. And thanks to my fantastic director, Jane Kleins, and our ebullient facilitator, makes a change from talented and indefatigable, Jonny Ross, we've had 9 online meetings and panel discussions with some great panelists and topics for discussion. Today is no exception. In fact, today's meeting is very special as one of our esteemed panel, John Geldart, who I'll introduce shortly, was the speaker at our last face-to-face meeting, would you believe, on the 16th of March 2020, just a year ago. In fact, those present will remember that he was called away at the end of the meeting, thank goodness it was at the end of his talk, should I say, to speak to, I think it was the Secretary of State for Bays. So that was quite a momentous day, and we all know what's happened in the last 12 months. Now, also since our last meeting, you will have received the second excellent letter from Israel, expertly written by Leeds expat Paul Ulster. I hope he's on the call today, but it's really good, and hopefully there'll be more of those coming through to tell us what's happening in all walks of life, political, social, economic, in Israel. As you're aware, the mission of Israel Business, UK Israel Business, is to encourage and support bilateral trade between the UK and Israel. We're a non-political and non-denominational organisation, although there's obviously an affinity to the Jewish community. I think it's worth reminding ourselves about exporting opportunities to Israel and the application of Israeli technology, which is second to none. Israel is a highly developed Western-orientated market whose business practice is similar to much of Western Europe. UK exports to Israel have grown steadily, and many British companies have a major presence in the market. Israel's economic performance is strong in terms of GDP growth, low inflation, and falling unemployment. The Israeli economy is stable, mature, and supported by an efficient public sector. Israel continues to be a growing export market for UK companies, and according to official figures published by the Israel Central Bureau of Statistics, annual British exports to Israel have grown steadily in the past few years, from 2.16 billion in 2016 to 2.5 billion in 2019. Of course, Israel has got an excellent reputation for innovation and invention and is a world centre for research and development. There are opportunities for UK companies to pursue collaboration agreements with Israeli tech companies. Sectors of particular interest are software, electronics, biotech, healthcare, and telecoms. And many of those sectors are well represented here in the north of England. And in terms of ease of doing business, for the size of company, and it's only a small company, Israel, it's 35th out of 190 countries in the world in terms of ease of doing business. On a specific application, I'm delighted to see that the pill cam is, and this is a pill cam here, which you swallow to check for cancer. I'm pleased to say it's now being trialled across the NHS. Now, this will avoid the need for very uncomfortable colonoscopies. The capsule, and it's no bigger than a pill, can provide a diagnosis within hours. the sci-fi invention takes 2 pictures a second as it makes its way through the body, checking for signs of cancer and other conditions such as chronic disease. Coincidentally, on the last trade mission that we had from here in the north of England, and that was in 2007, which happened to coincide with England playing Israel in the Euro qualifiers, which was a really boring match. We visited the company that developed the pill, and they gave me this as a souvenir. So I've had it all those years, but now at least the NHS is giving it a trial. So before I introduce our esteemed panel, as always, I must thank our sponsors and partners. We're really grateful to all of them because without them, we couldn't carry on our organization. So first of all, our joint main sponsors, BigChange, and Martin is on the panel today, and Town Centre Securities, and hopefully Edward Zip is here today. We're really grateful for their continued support. And of course, all our partners who also support us, starting with the IOD, John Geldart and Poonam Keir here today, and John is on the panel. Mitchell Wealth Management, Stephen and Charles Mitchell, representing Mitchell Wealth Management. Sky Group, Mark Rothwell. Chef Works, Paul Gross. Black Solicitors, Nick Dyson. Berries, Simon and Jeff Walton. J-Life, Elliot Landy. The Business Desk, I think Ben Ormsby, the editor, is here today, and we thank him for putting the article in the Business Desk to give us a bit more publicity prior to this meeting. WPA Healthcare, Jeff Baskin. Manning Stainton, Russell Manning. Boost Drinks, Simon Gray unfortunately can't be with us today. The Department for International Trade, Mark Robson isn't here today. Fleek Marketing, of course, Jonny Ross. And last but not least, my own firm, Murray Harcourt, who chartered accountants. So thank you to all our supporters. As I say, without them, we couldn't carry on this organisation. So now to our esteemed panel. First of all, John Geldart. John was appointed Director General of the Institute of Directors in October 2019. Prior to that, John spent 30 years working in professional services sector, most recently at Grant Thornton International Limited, where he was responsible for the organization's interests in China, and previously as a global board member responsible for the brand. John has a long-standing connection with the IOD as chair of IOD Yorkshire and North East region prior to his appointment, this prestigious appointment as Director General. He is the author of 3 books on China, and in addition to being a fellow of the IOD, he is also a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society. Dor Bershadsky, we're delighted to see today. He became Executive Director of UK Israel Business, the main organization based in London, following 3 years as a senior manager. During his 3 years at UK Israel Business, Dor has led the expansion of the organization's executive delegation program and the creation of sector-focused networks such as UK Israel Health Tech Forum, which brings together 300 leaders representing the UK and Israel health tech ecosystems. Dor is a graduate of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, the Interdisciplinary Center Herzliya, and served as a team commander in the IDF Special Forces. Alongside his business career, Dor has been a professional classical singer. I don't know if he's performing today, performing with the ensemble in Israel and around the world. Martin Port, of course, needs no introduction. He's a Yorkshire-based entrepreneur and has been a leader and innovator in the telematics and mobile software industry since 1998. Martin is the founder and CEO of BigChange, an award-winning company whose pioneering mobile workforce and job management system, JobWatch, has taken sectors such as construction, facilities management, field service, transport, logistics and waste management by storm since it was first made available in 2013. In February this year, as we've mentioned in the last meeting, a US venture capitalist has made a £75 million majority investment into BigChange. BigChange's management team, led by Martin, will retain a significant minority stake in the company to drive it forward. So that's your panel, and now over to Jonny to carry on.
Hi, thanks, Colin. So just to remind you, feel free to network in the chat. I know that some of you are currently doing that, but you're only talking to the panelists. So if you change the drop down to panelists and attendees, you'll actually be able to see each other. Feel free to drop any links. We'd love questions. So if you've got any particular questions that you'd like to ask the panel, then please do put them in the Q&A. That would be really helpful. And I'm sure that the panelists would look forward to answering those questions. So where I think we should start, and hi everyone, are we all okay?
All good. Yeah, fantastic.
We're all good.
Lovely to see you.
I wanted to start with John, and the reason being is that you spoke at the breakfast, UK Israel breakfast for the Northeast on the 16th of March, a year ago. I think the government was put into lockdown, the government put us into lockdown on the 23rd, so it was only a few days later. So I think we should mark that it's been a year, and you know, when you were last here, and we're still online. You only joined the IOD the 1st of October, or you only took over the IOD the 1st of October previous to that. So I can only imagine it must have been quite an interesting year. And have you managed to get your feet under the table doing it online?
No, absolutely, and thanks. You know, it's a pleasure to be here today. You know, a year, almost exactly a year on from the last time that I was able to speak to the group. Yeah, what a journey and what a year I think it's been for us all. The answer is yes. It's a virtual table. I'm sitting talking to you not from London, but from Harrogate in North Yorkshire, so not that far away from many people. I'm a Yorkshire lad by breeding, and that I'm very proud to be so, and was involved in the IOD prior to getting this role as the regional chair, as Colin has said. So yes, it's been a year that we had to pivot, as I think a lot of organisations did, to virtual very, very fast. Significant change for the IOD. But I think it was Winston Churchill said, never waste a good crisis. And we've taken the opportunity, as I think a lot of organisations have, to re-look at what the IOD is, what it can offer to its members, and how we can do that. So it's been a huge journey, but it's come down to really being really focused, as I'm sure all businesses are. You know, when your back's into the wall, you've got to be super focused on what are the key things that make a difference to your business in terms of customers, and that's really what we've been doing. And of course, as part of that, we've been very engaged with the government. That call with it was Alex Sharma at the time. Those calls didn't stop. And in fact, I've been speaking to first Alec and now Kwasi Kwarteng, who's the new business secretary, on a literally almost daily basis for the last year. Also with the PM and with Rishi, as well as other members of the government, as well as the opposition front bench, because we're an apolitical organisation. You know, our job is to make sure we represent our members at the top table, in order to support directors to be the best directors we can be, and to push government in terms of the support that we believe that directors needed. So it's actually been easier to work with government during this year, because we can flip, as we know, from one meeting to another. We can be in the UK 1 minute. I know that Martin's got to go to France, I think, at 10 o'clock. So, you know, it is easy to do that, and that's brought with it a lot of challenges, but a lot of interesting opportunities as well. So, I mean, I'll pause there, but my journey has really been one of really focusing on supporting businesses at the front line with government. I'm very happy to talk about that, and maybe later I can have a chat about some of the things that are literally happening right now, and the part that IoT is playing in it.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Martin, been quite a year for you, a significant investment that you've managed to achieve. Just talk us through how that's come to light, and you know, the change that must have happened for you. I mean, the feeling that must have been generated for you, it must be huge.
Yeah, so thanks, Johnny. Obviously, we've tried to meet up a few times in the last few months, but I've always cancelled. Now you know why I cancelled. So yeah, first of all, obviously lovely to see John, and obviously I'm a proud member of the IOD. So if you're not, subscribe. And secondly, Dor, who I'm a proud member of the BITC, and obviously proud to be, you know, part of BITC in Leeds. So so in terms of the year, it's been yeah, quite more than interesting. First of all, obviously, we've had the incredibly sad death toll, which has obviously been obviously really very difficult. And obviously, my family, thank God, we've all been, if we've had COVID, we've recovered from it. But obviously, other people have had it really hard, and obviously thankful for the great NHS that we have, and especially you know, all the communities that have helped. But in terms of, for me, COVID's been an incredible step change in my life, because for years I've been, every week has been traveling from one place to another, or spending long hours at work at the office. And in the 26 years now I've been married, I've never once had dinner at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock around the kitchen table. So now I've got the chance to experience family life. So I've had the chance to be with my family. You know, I do a lot of commuting every day now. I get out of bed, I walk downstairs, I go to my desk. Occasionally I'll do some trips to the kitchen, and then I come back. And I think most people are having a kind of living that kind of life at the moment. We're all looking forward to getting out. But in terms of the business and what we've achieved, before COVID, we had a plan to bring on a new shareholder, new investor in BigChange. We were very lucky for the last 4 years to be courted by a company called Great Hill Partners, who are a American private equity that manage about $8 billion of funds. We had about 100 private equities interested in investing and buying into our business, and we chose Great Hill because they understood our market, and they understand the addressable market worldwide for a UK company, which we are. You know, the addressable market for us is many billions. So when Great Hills made an offer in December, and obviously our business had pivoted from being a face-to-face business to becoming an online sales and onboarding business. So everything we do now is virtual. We've now, you know, within 6 weeks, we'd received an investment of £75 million, and the business is worth 100 million. And in the next, over the next 3 to 5 years, we expect to, you know, make the business worth somewhere in the order of, well, our vision is to make it a £1 billion business, a unicorn, a Leeds unicorn, a Yorkshire unicorn, and that's our plan. So we've got big plans, and obviously, you know, nothing's changed for me. Still the same person. The only thing I managed to spend my money on is giving to charity. Everything else is just the same. So I'm really pleased that in some ways COVID is a bit of a blessing for me. It always makes you feel very grounded.
You've just increased your target by 2 years, because I'd read that it was a 5-year target, and you've just said 3 to 5 years. So so that's quite ambitious.
Yeah, you have to have ambition, and we've got a real purpose, and we've got strong values, and we've got an amazing team, and we're going to achieve it.
Good. I like it. Dor, thanks for being here. I'm wanting to know for the year for you, and also for UK Israel business. You've had some very big events. Some well-known people have been on some of those events, but also you've just released the UK Israel Health Tech Forum report. Your involvement in that, so how's and the classic singing, I was looking, I found a couple of clips on YouTube, but they're from 2010. Is it something that you still do? And obviously COVID will have stopped that for a while, but tell me about your year.
Great. So first of all, thank you to join. It's great to join John and Martin, you, Jonny, and thank you for the invitation. And apropos John, I mean, I have a master's in geography and urban planning, so I'm connected to that. And my family comes from China. So my grandparents was born in China, in Harbin, and moved to Shanghai, and then moved to Israel. So this is my eclectic past. So in terms of our year, and I'll touch the singing in the end. It was a very interesting year, as we saw all over the board in terms of what the power of digital, and we always saw ourselves, and I think you see yourself also as a kind of thought leadership platform. And we used to do it as everyone does, in the rooms of 100 or 200 or 300 people. We did delegations to Israel, of course, and it took us some time. It took us, I think, around 5 to 6 months to understand that thought leadership is the right way to support Israeli companies that want to enter the UK market, and UK companies that want to get access to the Israeli ecosystem, mainly in tech, of course. And what we've built is essentially a B2B marketing platform through thought leadership, which surprised me also to be such an effective way. And the way we do it, we partner. So I'll take, for example, a company called AppsFlyer, which Martin told me he has a family member who heads their Europe operation. It's a $2 billion company in the data of apps. Amazing company, amazing growth. And by connecting them, for example, to St. Martin Sorrel in an event we just did 2 weeks ago, the amount of exposure they got through it, even if they're a big company, the big marketing team, was huge. So it was viewed by around 1 million people, and both organically and also in kind of in a targeted way. So companies today, both in the UK and Israel, are using us for that. This was a great involvement for us in this year. And so this is kind of the events we do. Now, in terms of health, we actually started 2 years ago. So pre-COVID, I've started together with an Israeli guy that lives in London called Elad Dushak. We founded the UK Israel Health Tech Forum, just because we saw a huge opportunity around it. We had many people from Leeds actually joining the forum. And what happened again through COVID and through another, we joined forces with the Anglo-Israel Association during COVID, which is chaired by Lord Yu, and which really focused us on sectors where government, academia, and business come together. So we were able to put a report out together with Parliament and the House of Lords and the government on what the government can do to ease the way for Israeli companies to enter the UK ecosystem. Because they're all understanding that it's very difficult to enter specifically the health ecosystem here, and that there are missed opportunities. So this is, again, just was a very interesting way of reaching to so many people, and we just see now a flow of Israeli companies coming on the back of it. So that was there. Now, in terms of singing, I have a piano here. I didn't do it. So singing was before going to the military, to the special forces. I had to make a decision. Do I take this professionally, or I go because my mom was a general in the Israeli Air Force? So this was kind of a decision to be made, and so singing was kind of became a professional hobby. So, but you can still see something.
What the theme that I'm seeing here is that international trade, and so DOR, for example, you were talking about the healthcare forum, and in fact what that recommends, it's come out and said that the report recommends the establishment of a permanent landing pad for Israel health tech companies in Britain, a startup visa for Israeli health tech innovations, and include Israel as a priority country for UK innovation agencies. John, you've worked for many years in China. You're very familiar with China. You've got some really good thoughts on Britain and China's relationship. And one of the things that you talk about is to get a good deal, it's all about understanding the psyche of the Chinese. And then Martin, you know the firm that's just invested 75 million from Boston, Massachusetts. John, you talk about one of the reasons that international like Britain is it's all about good brands, high quality brands that we have. So what I'm interested in from all of you in a different way really is understanding the psyche. So I'm guessing China, USA, Israel, it's all a bit different, but I'd like for us all to hear a bit about what those differences are and how we need to think as businesses when we're talking to these different places. So I'm going to start with Martin. Actually, what's it like dealing with the Americans, and what's their psyche, and how do you make deals happen?
Well, first of all, you have to understand the language. So Americans speak business language is slightly different to the UK. So we call it sales whip, they call it funnel. We call it orders, they call it bookings. So if you get it wrong, it can mean something completely different. And there's lots of other examples. But no, I think the fact is that Britain is an incredible place to live. It's an incredible democracy. The people, the employment is much fairer for the employee and the employer, as in it's mutually respected. Whereas if, for instance, we're in France, it's very hard, it's very expensive and very hard to employ French people because of the nature of the country and what goes on there. And in America, the cost of employment is much more expensive. So the UK, as a source of energy and people to employ, people are number one in business, is an amazing country, and has an amazing resource of people. And I think that's our first big attribute. And then obviously, secondly, like Israel, we've got a tremendous, we're developing technology, we're developing, in bioscience, biotech, and other areas like blockchain. So, we're really, I think we're at the forefront. Many businesses in the UK, and I deal with a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, they're adopting technology much faster than American companies. It's quite amazing. And in fact, more than so than probably many other countries in the world. So I think we have an incredible opportunity to really shout about what we do. And I think we should be very proud of it.
John, you say that the Chinese have a long-term plan, and part of that is they see an opportunity with COVID in investing in Britain for quality companies. Talk to us about the understanding the psyche of Chinese and how to get the best deal out of them.
Well, I think with any organization, with any operation, with any country, and with any individual, we approach them with something of a kind of stereotypical mindset. That's just the nature of how we are. So when people look back at Britain from abroad, and you ask particularly Chinese, you ask them, well, what does Britain mean to you? And they will talk about red pillar boxes. They'll talk about the Queen. They'll talk about pomp and circumstance. They'll talk about green rolling hills. They'll talk about Windsor Castle. They'll talk about castles generally, and they'll talk about history and connectivity. In terms of history's connection with today, and that's actually very similar to China. There are quite significant parallels between the way that the Chinese look at business, in particular at family, which is incredibly important in China, as we do. And the other side of the coin is we look at China and we also have very stereotypical views. So we tend to think about government. We tend to think about the plight of the Uyghurs. We tend to think about human rights, and we tend to have concerns over IP theft and the like. And of course, some of those things are true. We'll equally be quick to say, "Oh, China's a wonderful culture. It's got it's an amazing history," and of course, those things are true too. And the thing with the Chinese is you need to know that. And you need to know what to say and what not to say. But at the end of the day, business is business, and Chinese business people, they do approach business in a different way, but it is grounded on one word, and that one word is guanxi. And guanxi means deep, enduring relationships, and it is really based on relationships. Because of the situation historically in China, and this is something, again, one needs to know about the country, because it's deeply ingrained in the psychology, history is that the Chinese have never, until very recently, really known about what it is to have money. So it's only really in the recent 30 years, I suppose 50 years to a degree, since the Cultural Revolution, that the Chinese have come about to understand the value of money and how to obtain money, and therefore they're very fixated and focused on how they can look after their families, and that comes from generation of wealth, and that comes from doing deals. So it is very important that people understand the history of China, the culture of China. You don't have to necessarily understand the language. I mean, I spent 10 years there off and on, and obviously I've got a smattering of Chinese, but that's not the priority in terms of working with the Chinese. You've got to have a respect, and I think that's the critical thing in all business. It's a critical thing dealing cross-culturally, that respect trumps many things. But if you can respect people and you can work with them to their agendas, then you'll get a good deal. And the final thing I'd say on the Chinese culture and Chinese way of operating is that they don't start from where we start. So the Chinese will look at everything. The reason it takes Chinese government 5 years to get a 5-year plan is that they agree everything. They look at every opportunity, every connection. They look at the backstory. They look at the potential for change. They look at the way that people might respond and how you head that off at the pass. They are supreme strategists. And that is when Mao was asked about whether Taiwan would ever return to China after the Cultural Revolution. He said, probably. And they said, well, when will that happen? When will that happen? And he said, maybe 100 years. Well, interestingly, they're coming up to 100 years in the not too distant future. So they play a long game. They are very focused on that, on the strategic overview, and they take a very, very wide view of everything. And that's important to remember.
And this has had an impact on how you're running the IOD. You mentioned Guanxi, and one of the things that you've implemented quite strongly during COVID is the peer-to-peer support networks and learning from others. But also you have a 100-year vision for the IOD as well. So is that from your experiences in China? You sort of brought that across. Is that right?
Yes, I mean I think that the IOD, it's the Institute of Directors. So we're the Institute of Individuals. And we're an institute. So we were founded in 1903. We've got our Royal Charter in 1906. So we've already been around for over 100 years. And we are here in the public interest. We're here to be partisan for directors. So we are industry agnostic, and we are absolutely apolitical. But we're here to be we're here in the interest of directors, and the Royal Charter is very clear that we're here in the public interest. So to be in the public interest, and this is particularly at the moment is interesting because we're seeing the white paper just come out on audit reform and governance yesterday, which we support. We are here in the long-term public interest for the improvement and quality of directors in the United Kingdom and in the world. So to do that, my 100-year vision is no willful failure. And what I mean by that is that directors, we all, I happen to be called one of the things, the Director General and the CEO. We all have this fiscal responsibility and other responsibilities as leaders of our organisation, and we mustn't forget that it's enshrined in law. We have wider responsibilities than just finance, but we have seen notable failures, and we can probably reel them off: Carillion, BHS, etc. Thomas Cook. I mean, some were not down to willful failure. Some were down to black swan events, and you get black swan events, and of course that happens, and that's extremely regrettable, and businesses go to the wall for no fault of their own. But in many instances, we've seen organisations that have had their leaders asleep at the wheel, and the approach to that is about how can we support directors to be the best directors they can be, and that's the vision, the 100-year vision, that we shouldn't see willful corporate failure because of ignorance or ineptitude. And therefore, we need directors to be trained, structured, and approach their businesses in a structured way. And that's what we teach, that's what we tutor, and that's what we try to connect people to do, to learn from each other, to learn from great people such as those around the table today and around this virtual event, because we only learn often by mistakes. It's good to see the mistakes that others have made and then learn from that, so you don't make them yourselves. And we're always learning, and that's part of the thing that we look at in the IOD. How can we connect people to the best connection we can create? How can we develop directors to be the best we can be? And how can we then influence government to put the right structures and framework in the British economy to allow us to succeed on behalf of not only our own businesses but Britain as a whole?
I'm going to tap more into the how directors can be the best they can be. But for now, Dor, Israel, I sort of feel there's a whole different take on the Israeli psyche. And is it more Israel trying to sell to us? What's the tell us about the Israel, how we do business with Israel and the Israeli psyche.
Yeah, so when you all know Israel well, how small and an island it is. So Israeli companies' mindset, specifically when we speak about technology and innovation, and they from day one they look outward. So the whole strategy is never to sell to the Israeli market. So if you come across a company that tells you that there's great opportunity in the Israeli market, you can pass to the next company. So when they look at the UK market, I mean, they see two opportunities. And one speaks to the idea of brands. I mean, they understand that they can connect both to the UK market itself. So by entering the UK market, and of course it's known in the financial market, but you see we see it in other markets, in health also. We see Israeli companies doing very well by choosing the UK market as a prime market or a secondary market. And the other thing we see, which is very interesting, is using UK brand and the UK itself as a brand. Martin spoke about the NHS. So the NHS, of course, people sometimes criticize it or say that there are problems, but it's a very well-respected organization around the world. So when an Israeli company is getting validated by the NHS, they can then go and use it elsewhere in the world to enter the US market, the Australian market, regardless. So this is for us a very interesting way to look at things. Now, in terms of UK companies entering Israel, I guess this is a more challenging thing to look at. I think it's mainly done in the kind of big companies when we look at airplanes and engines and vehicles. But it is something interesting to see if we can look into improving it, kind of make it facilitating it better.
So it does come back to the quality of brand then, and I like that. I love that the alliance with the NHS and what that can do for Israel, for the rest of the world. I am looking for questions. If you've got questions, Anthony Greenfield's asked a question. We'll go to a question now. So he said, given the shift to remote working, how do panelists envisage developing people's knowledge and capabilities in the future? I'll start with Martin, if that's okay. So given the shift to remote working, how do you envisage developing people's knowledge and capabilities in the future?
So obviously that's what we do. That's our number one job, is competence, capability, and really try and upskill people all the time. So we're working with obviously bringing great talent. So we've just recruited a chief marketing officer who was a CMO at Iris Software, which is a £2 billion business. So he worked there for 6 years and helped grow it. So when you bring talent in like that, that has a knock-on effect with the people. We're also using our apprentice allowance. The government, if your payroll is over a certain figure, we have a fund, and also the government help. And we're working with an organisation that's helping us structure apprenticeships so that we can give people an apprenticeship in customer success. So even virtually, we can give people the support, the skills. Obviously, we're going to go back to a hybrid type of solution whereby people will be in the office, depending on what they're doing. They'll be partly in the office, partly not. But we won't go back to the working fully from the office. That'll be a thing of the past, because everybody's conscious of the environment and sustainability. So just on people, we're people business first, and we're always looking to upskill the people.
John, you're really hoping that the government's going to turn around and say, we want directors to learn more and to have better training available. How are you going to give knowledge and increase capability to the future of directors in this sort of virtual hybrid world?
And the question is the question, and I think that I can say what we do, but maybe just to front up on what the government is doing. You saw, I'm sure, that Rishi Sunak came up with this a fund for businesses, SMEs, to be able to have digital skills and cyber skills. The 12-week course that's going through, in fact, I think Leeds Beckett is one of those universities that are business schools that has been selected in the structural approach that he's taken on that. I think that's to be welcomed, but it's nowhere near enough. I mean, we saw the increase. I'm sure Martin's taken advantage of the doubling of the apprenticeship levy benefit to £3,000, and we should see more of that. I think what we've been saying to the government is, look, it's very simple. All you need to say is one thing. In the United Kingdom, you can be 16 years old, upright and breathing, and be a director with no training at all. And that just can't be right. We train everything else, every other profession. We are a profession. Being a director is a profession. It's a way of life for most of us, but it's a profession. So if you're a lawyer or you're so many different organizations, accountant, lawyer, whatever, chartered surveyor, you get a qualification that allows you to practice. But as a director, no qualification. And I think it's very important then that we have some qualification. In fact, we're calling for, as part of the audit reform and governance white paper, for a code of conduct to be signed up to for all directors in the United Kingdom, because we think that'll start to raise the bar. What we're doing around, we have these three components of what we do. We connect people, we develop people, and we help them to influence. Around the develop section, we already have a suite of courses that we run for directors, and that allows you to take a certificate, then a diploma, and then to become a chartered director, which is the pinnacle of our qualification. So it's equivalent of an EMBA. It's got it's accredited courses, and in fact, we've now in a month's time will be the vast majority of all our courses will be CPD driven. So we'll provide a CPD for all the courses we run. So that's part of the focus of attention we've had this last year, is both pivot to digital, and I'll answer the question again in a second, but then to expand the range of courses. So we were launching a course around cyber. We were way off the stocks before the government came up with this. And around digital skills, and also around what we call GSE, rather than ESG. ESG is very important at the moment. It's the thing that's driving most organizations, and certainly the way the banks are looking at investment. ESG is particularly important. We've developed and we'll be launching a course around COP26, where we're involved with the government around GSE to look at sustainability. But the question is said, how do you do it in this new world? And what I believe is it's going to be, as Martin said, it's going to be this mixture. It's going to be a mixture of hybrid and face-to-face. There's an immense hunger in people to get back to face-to-face. Just before we came on air, we were talking about, it's going to be great to get back to face-to-face. And that is important. It's a deep human need that we have to have that physicality of connectivity that we get from sitting in front of somebody, and just the simple element of sharing bread together, of touching and connecting, and the eyeballs across the table. Because body language you can't see when you've only got your head and shoulders. There are so many other aspects, the way that people respond and interact, and the chemistry, physical chemistry that exists between people is so important. So we are going to see, and we've seen this in all the surveys we've done with members, going back to some form of face-to-face meeting. But in terms of learning, it's changed. Now we run courses where we have people. We've just developed a course in Chinese, and we've done a deal with the SASAC, which is the regulatory body in China, to train directors in China in corporate governance. You could argue, heaven knows they need it, but they have they've signed up to courses that we're running in a hybrid fashion, when we can return to face-to-face as well as virtual. But we can now run courses virtually all over the world, and that's a huge opportunity in terms of export of the quality that the United Kingdom have and its reputation that we have as a learning centre. And this is going to be something I would encourage businesses to think about. It's not just about what we do here in the UK, but it's exporting that knowledge on behalf of brand Britain to a much wider audience, because it sits very well with the soft power that actually Britain needs to get some resurgence on back of what has been essentially quite a negative perception around Brexit around the world. Now, so the answer is around hybrid, but the answer is around virtual, and the answer is around looking to how you can do that on a one-to-one basis across the United Kingdom. So just a very precise answer is we run a series of courses around the role of director. Now, we used to offer those just face-to-face. Now they're offered across the United Kingdom. They're run virtually. We have a series of examinations that are all virtually operated and in fact are virtually invigilated. And that's the way forward here, because that means we can scale the offer to allow any director in the United Kingdom to take the course. Those courses, some of them are expensive because they're at degree level, but a lot of the courses we run are either free, certainly online at the moment, or quite a low cost entry cost. But we're specializing in the skills of directors. So what we don't do as an MBA, what we do is around the skills of directors, and that's particularly important. And I think that's something that I'm sure Martin will do with his team in terms of scaling up them for different needs. But for us, it's director skills around the boardroom, around finance, and around duties.
The thing that interests me is that I've got 3 teenage boys, and they're all looking at what subjects they might want to do, where they might want to go. And if you just went back 10 years, business studies was frowned upon, you know, unless you were doing some kind of doctor dentistry qualification type thing. But actually the fundamentals aren't taught, and they were frowned upon. So Martin, I'm interested actually. What do you think to requalification for directors and the sort of the qualification for being a director?
So I think I just want to say that not only in the UK, I think we're a very compliant country in terms of health and safety regulations. I think we're up there, one of the best in the world. If you look at the amount of people that are injured or killed on the roads compared to Africa or other countries, we are, and the rest of Europe even, you know, people talk about red tape and bureaucracy. We are right up there in terms of you know, making sure that people are safe at work, and there's very few accidents. So I think in terms of, you know, following on from that, like John said, we've got to become much more responsible. You know, we have ISO, we have 9001, 27000, lots of different standards to achieve, and part of those standards, you know, include the role of the directors and, you know, what we can and can't do, and what we should be, how we should act and be responsible. And I think absolutely, if we take a driving test, you have a test. If you want to be a director and you want to look after the company money, and you'll have shareholders and you have people to report to and be responsible to, and people you borrow money from, and customers that you engage with, and, you know, you've got a whole, and your employees. So it's a whole responsibility. I would say also in Israel, what I was amazed with in Israel, and don't take this the wrong way, Dor, but the compliance and the way that they operate in terms of company directors and public companies is incredible. I mean, you have to be there to see it, but really, I think it's even a higher standard, I have to say, in many respects than the UK and America. You know, the stock market is so well monitored and managed. It's a very high standard. So we can learn a lot also from Israel as well.
Dor, is that what you see?
Definitely, and I'll say also when you speak about kind of the digital, the way we see it, and very similar to what John and Martin spoke. We almost see ourselves right now as a media company, in the sense that, for example, Martin joined in 2018, came on a delegation to Israel for us. He saw in 2.5 days 40 companies, but this was open to 20-25 people. And today, what we do, we bring the same companies and the same founders and executives, but we share this type of content with thousands or millions of people. And the idea is very clear. I mean, the Israeli ecosystem is known as maybe second or third to Silicon Valley. So if you run a company today, you have to be aware of what's going on in Israel, or you should have a presence in Israel. I mean, today there are on 400 R&D and multinational R&D centers in Israel. And that's the proof for that. So we see our mission as making sure that as many executives around the world are aware of the ecosystem and of the opportunities. And this was a great opportunity for us, which we haven't done before. It was always like a closed club for one amount of people.
Martin Simmons has asked a question, which actually takes me onto a topic that I was wanting to get to anyway. He said, do IOD and other focus on ethics and values with directors. His thoughts are that it's not just what you do, but how you do it. And the reason that I was wanting to go into this is because recently, Martin, you wrote an article, "It's time to stoke the ambitions of young people." You talked about how a report saw that only 25% of kids between the age of 16 and 17 have had a Saturday job. That's down from 50% in the 90s.
Or a Sunday job.
Or a Sunday job, sorry, a weekend job.
Yeah.
Thank you. John, you talk about Generation Alpha, kids under 12, they're used to swiping and they just expect a business. And so businesses need some kind of purpose if they want the staff that they need. And Door, I think a whole different thing in Israel. You know, with the IDF, you're a team commander in the IDF Special Forces. Is it all young people have to go into the IDF? Is that how it is? Is that how it is?
Yeah. So it is mandatory. With years now, the sort of percentage really went down, but it's for sure. And anyone who engaged with the Israeli ecosystem knows that the military service, the fact that everyone there's a point in their life where everyone kind of goes, there's a benchmark. Everyone starts from the same place, so the opportunities are open. This is one important thing. But the other thing is that when I was 19, I was a team commander of around 20 people already, with so much responsibility for people's lives. I mean, you're going into different areas. Think about different places around the region where you go to travel during the night usually. So it's an amazing responsibility, and also and we see it specifically in the technological unit, where guys, when they're 19 or 20 or 21, will be responsible to develop software that is used by the Israeli military for security reasons. And then, of course, the units like A200. I mean, they go, and it's not a difficult transition to start a company when they're 23, 24, with amazing experience. So it's for the Israeli ecosystem, it's a very, very important part.
So John, talk to me about how businesses need a purpose, and they're not just there to make money for shareholders. They if they're going to attract staff, they've got to think of the alpha generation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question was about ethics, and I'll turn to that at the same time to answer this. We teach ethics as part of the certificate course. So there is, in fact, the certificate course is made up of 4 components. One of them is around the role of the board, and there's a very specific part of that which is around ethics and ethical behaviour, but also and compliance, but particularly around this notion of a higher purpose. I don't know if people have come across Larry's letter. I'm sure you have, but it's super large investors in terms of Blackstone and others are looking at how an organisation is framed as well as how it's run. So this question, and he was very clear, and he said, if without purpose, you have no business, and that is absolutely at the heart of the IOD. Our purpose is to basically focus on better directors, better world, on the notion that if we have good directors running good businesses, then those businesses will be sustainable. They will employ people for a long time. They'll nurture, they'll grow those people. They'll be part of the wider ecosystem of their locality, of their county, and of their country, and in this instance of Britain, and therefore for the benefit of Britain. And if Britain is a better place, then you could say the world is a better place. And certainly as we export and go around the world, one of the things that Britain exports is very much probity and ethics. And having not worked in China, where I've seen what you and I would regard as very unethical behaviour, that export of ethics and the standards that we have in the UK is particularly important. It actually gives surety to investors. That's one of the reasons that UK remains to be one of the best places to do business, and one of the significantly probably the best place in terms of investor confidence, and that's because of the way we do business. And ethics is the only way, and a sense of purpose is the only way to attract, as I say, I don't know if people have heard of Generation Alpha, but that's the only way to attract the next generation of directors. That's the only way to attract young people, because young people have, particularly on the back of Greta and we've seen other activities around, net zero. The government is particularly encouraging people to, and I would too, to look at race to zero. the UK is looking to stand up and be counted on net zero, and I think that's appropriate. And that actually shines a light on ethics and purpose that has become something that is particularly important from an investor point of view, but also for an employee point of view. So I think it's absolutely critical.
Sorry. I was going to say, John, that the first thing that we've addressed in this next evolution of our business is the purpose and values. So we've really focused a lot on that statement. And when we get out of bed every morning, what is our purpose? And it's about our customers. It's about sustainability. It's about making our community, not just the people that work for us, but the wider community, include them in what we're doing. And I think then you have the values, and obviously there's all religions, but obviously we're from me personally being Jewish, we have commandments, 10 commandments, and we have values, and those values and commandments are very aligned. And I think that's what we're talking about here, that if you don't have those, it's all right taking a test and passing a test, but if you don't think about these things on a day-to-day basis, or think about the values, and when you sell to somebody, you have integrity, and or you serve somebody, you have to be professional. And I think I completely agree with you, John, on that point.
How are you going to stoke the children of today, Martin? You firmly believe they need business experience? I agree with you.
Yeah, we have so many case studies and of people, just coming into our business from the age of 17, 18, or started with us with work experience, and they've just gone on and they've either developed in our business or moved to other businesses, and or it could be somebody that's older. The blog the week before was about the over 55s. I'm 58. I'm not finished. I've got loads of energy left. So we need to respect all ages, and we need to do the best what we can do to help people in their journey, because obviously we're going to be working for a lot longer, especially with paying back for our debt to the pandemic.
I wanted to talk about the North and devolution, and Brian Addleston's asked a question: what's your view on the redistribution of business away from London? The BBC have just made an announcement, haven't they, telling staff that they need to move, but also Door. You do a lot of work with Made in Jerusalem, and that's how Jerusalem's gone from a city steeped in history and religion and politics, but now supporting tech and innovation. So, sort of wrapping all of this together, how does Leeds and the North become this powerhouse? And is it a good thing what the BBC have come out with? How do we become that tech city? Dor, we'll start with you.
So I can only speak about my experience. I was lucky to, when doing my master's in Jerusalem, to join the Jerusalem municipality as an economic development advisor. Exactly in the times where everything kind of came together in the city, and the idea that the most important thing right now in the city is to invest in economic development. And I will, because of time, I just mentioned 3 things that we've done there together with the group of people. So the first thing was a very strong grassroots community organization called Made in Jerusalem, run by 3 young, amazing entrepreneurs that really kind of brought the community, and that's the second thing, brought all the parts of the community together, the industry and the government, both local and national, and the business and the academia, and kind of looking what's the strength, where are the strengths of the cities, and then celebrating it outward. It goes back to what I spoke about, what we do today, but in terms of sharing content with many. We will say every small company that hired 10 people became a celebration, and it was in the news. And then really investing a lot in kind of the PR of the city and why it's a good place to start businesses. And the last thing that what I've done is from the municipality point of view, I really opened the municipality as the integral part of the business ecosystem. So we will have kind of business networking meetings in the municipality with the mayor, and using the municipality as a force to bring many other forces to join. So I guess those are the main 3 things.
Martin?
So I was just thinking nearly a minute to go.
No,
I was thinking about George, but no, I think I think it's incredible. I was thinking about Made in Yorkshire. The brand Made in Yorkshire. I was thinking about all the tailor's tea, even not necessarily technology. But no, I think, I visited Jerusalem and met with a lot of people there, and also know what, I think it's very important that what we recognize is that every area has something to give. If you go to, for example, I love the Northeast, like Newcastle and areas like that. There was a great company founded called Sage in the Northeast. It's a world beater in accounting technology. And the people that work in Sage, the quality of support, just incredible. And wherever you go across the UK or in Israel, any type of area, now, there's always a, they have a different culture in Yorkshire, maybe to Lancashire, but that all adds to the spice and the dimension. And we need to make sure that we don't just see, it's not just London, it's every single economy, every single area can add value.
John, just finishing on you, just a sort of 20-30 second answer. Are the BBC right to push staff outside of London?
Yes, is a short answer. Brand is the long answer. This is about brand Britain. It's about the levelling up agenda that the government has for some time not delivered on. And this is very, very important in terms of distributing wealth and jobs around the United Kingdom. So it is super important, but it is about brand Yorkshire. Is what I think we should be focusing on. It's not just about technology, it is about what we say and what we do that makes this part of the United Kingdom, the north of England, the northeast, and specifically Yorkshire, rightfully proud of what it delivers and what it can do. And I think that's what I'd encourage people to think about. I was a proud Yorkshireman in Beijing, and you can always tell a Yorkshireman, but only once, because we have an opinion. And I made that very clear in Beijing, and I think I was quite well known in the expat community there. But that actually made me notice with the government. I ended up advising the Chinese government on a number of areas, not just representing Britain, but also I have to say representing a clear, sound voice, and I hope a voice true and strong for what this part of the United Kingdom can offer to investors. And I think that is something we can be proud of, and we should promulgate as much as we can.
A totally fascinating conversation this morning. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere, because there is a networking session that we're going to do straight after this in a moment, and we'll promote you to panelists so that you can put your video on. For now, Colin's going to give us a vote of thanks, but just personally from me, thank you so much to Martin Dorr and John for a fascinating conversation this morning. And I'll hand it over to Colin.
Thanks, Jonny. Well, it was a great ending when John said a Yorkshiremen have an opinion. Well, so do Israelis. So I think that is a really good way to end. That's what they do have in common. Firstly, can
I just ask you a question, Colin? Yeah? Did you invest in Pilcam?
Did I invest in Pilcam? No, I'm sorry.
Oh, shocking.
Nor did I. Well, go on. That's for another day. No, I'm conscious that John has got to go. But firstly, I omitted properly to introduce Jonny when I made the introductions to the panel. I think you'll all agree that, as always, he's done a fantastic job in facilitating the panel discussion and puts to shame some media professionals. The panel were fantastic again. The discussions covered some important issues, especially how Israel compares with the UK in some of these issues, skills of directors for running companies, treatment of respected brands such as the NHS, respecting all ages in employment and business. And now, as John mentioned, ESG, environmental, social and governance, three key factors now with ethical investments. So there's been so many topics covered in an hour, and I think it's been great. I'm sure you've all enjoyed it, and I'd like to thank once again the panel for doing a great job in making this meeting so interesting. Thank you very much, and do stay around for the networking.
So apologies if you have to go, but if you would like to stay, please do. Thank you for being here. I will promote you to